press go live, and I'm going to go press go live in our webinar app. Hey everyone, it is Jessica Tor here, and welcome to our very first panel. Before we get into it though, I want you to let me know if you can see me, you can hear me, and then we got some background noise here, but let me know if you can see me and hear me. We should be good though. It's great to see that you guys are, before we get into it, yeah. Oh, I think, yeah, there might be someone with their speakers on. We might need to mute it. I think we're good now. Awesome. Yeah, so guys, let us know where you guys are tuning in from as well. I am so excited for today's panel because we are joined with some of the most incredible teachable course creators, and we're going to be talking about how to launch a course in a niche. And we kind of talked about this earlier today in the workshop because I know a lot of you are thinking, well, I have a topic that I want to launch on or I'm passionate about, but how specific should I really get, and is that the right strategy? So just to start off, I'd love for us just to do a round robin of going around and seeing who everyone is. Deborah, I'd love to start with you. We're joined with Deborah Neiman from thriftyhomesteader.com. Can you tell us a bit about who you are and what you're up to?
I write about sustainable living and homesteading, and I happen to fall into a little niche of goats, writing about goats. I've written 4 books now, and one of them is called Raising Goats Naturally. And so a lot of what I write on my blog is about goats. And I decided to do a goat course. That was the whole reason. I thought I could turn my goat book into a course. And then once I started, I realized that I could actually turn that book into a lot of courses.
Love it. And I think we've got quite a few authors here, so we'll probably dive into that. And next we've got Alex Steele. You can find him on YouTube at Alex Steele. It's Steele, with over 500,000 subscribers, which is crazy. Alex, can you tell us a bit about who you are and what you do?
I'm a blacksmith, so I make things out of steel and I forge. And now, obviously, I put most of my effort into making YouTube videos. Not quite 500,000, still just working hard on it. A couple of days to go. Not quite. And so I make YouTube videos now. However, when I started my course, it was because I was teaching classes in person to people, and I wanted to find a way to kind of, get extra income streams that could come in while I'm teaching classes. And that's how I started the online courses to do that. And of course, now it's fantastic because alongside with the YouTube channel, the online courses that I've developed in the niche follow along quite nicely.
I love it. Yeah, you're doing incredible things with your courses. And last but not least, we have Tila and Spencer from every-tuesday.com. Welcome, guys. Love your t-shirts. Can you tell us a bit about who you are and what you're up to?
Sure. So Every Tuesday is a graphic design and hand lettering website. It's an education site, and we help creatives build on their existing skill sets and build new skill sets. So we do this through weekly free video tutorials. We offer templates and freebies, and then we offer online courses for people to dive deeper into the topics that are most important to them. And then Spencer.
I do all the blog design, all the sell page design, anything that has to do with code or tech integration, I handle that. And then we just both share the burden of coming up with new strategic content for every Tuesday.
I'm actually really looking forward to diving into that too, because yeah, you guys have some incredible topics and courses that you do. But I want to start off first going back to you, Alec, because we're talking about niches, and you mentioned that you used to do a lot of in-person coaching, or you were working with people. But you have a few courses, but one is very specific. So it's not just blacksmithing, it's intermediate blacksmithing. And I would love to know, why was it that you got so specific? And do you think by doing that you got better results?
So the first course that I did was a little more vague, a little more kind of open. It was a how to start blacksmithing, like the very, very raw basics. Somebody in their backyard, they want to start it as a hobby. And what I wanted to do is create a natural progression on from that. The end goal was another course of mine, which is called The Evolution of Toolmaking, which is a course inspired from really how it is that I learned blacksmithing, which is how you essentially make all your own tools to make all your own tools. It's a nice thing. It's a nice thing. And so all of the courses themselves are very, very, very tightly bound in, very niche in the niche, not only the intermediate blacksmithing, and it's all to take people from the one course to the next, to the next, to the next. The idea is then, you know, they get finished with one, they practice the skills, they learn the skills, they get good at them, they, you know, then go on to the next one and have the necessary basics or foundations to go on and move through them nicely and naturally. Then, you know, me be able to sell them through the process was the initial idea. And so that's worked well. And I think having the good focus, the nice tight in focus is a lot easier also than when it comes to building the course on my end too, because I know exactly what I'm doing and I don't have to worry about that too much.
And I'm actually curious if you were doing coaching with people, because I'm sure there's a lot of people doing one-on-one work right now. And type into the chat as well if that's where you're at. How did you tell people about your courses? Like, did you have your YouTube channel already? Or was it just like you started with the people you're working with and you're like, hey, I have this online course. Do you want to give it a shot?
So I was doing in-person classes, essentially teaching what it was that I would do in the online courses. So people would come visit me and come take my classes in person, you know, hands-on in the fire at the anvil, working, making stuff. And it wasn't them that I was selling to. At the time when I first built my online course, I had only about kind of 6,000 YouTube subscribers or so. And so my YouTube channel at the time was, every so often I would post a YouTube tutorial and post a little bit of information. And as I launched the courses, I would then be selling to the people that were watching the YouTube videos by capturing their email addresses, doing things along the lines of fun, nostalgic. It's been a little while since I've thought about this, and it's fun to think about. You know, this is a couple of years ago that I started all of this. I would create a YouTube video that is, you know, a tutorial that gets people excited, gets people engaged, you know, gets their toes dipped in the water about the technique that it was that I want to teach or base a course around. And then from there, I would then sell them or give them a PDF, pardon me, in exchange for their email address, and then have a campaign that would be automatically run through MailChimp from there, that would then sell them the course over the next few emails after giving them a little bit of extra value. And so, you know, it's a relatively standard model that I think was absolutely inspired a lot by a lot of the things that Teachable that you guys were teaching, and certainly a lot of other people at the time were talking about, and that worked well for the initial launches, capitalizing off those YouTube tutorials. And you know, at the time they'd only get, you know, 1,000 views or something, or 1,000 views or 2,000 views at the most, which is just a shock to think about. But even with that relatively low viewer count, it was still able to really nicely capture emails and bring people through the funnel.
That's great. And I just want to recap for everyone listening. So you started off with your free videos. You got people that were interested in that topic, and then you promoted your course. Now, I want to move on to you, Deborah, because, you know, it's one thing I'm sure people were YouTubing, like how to make a certain thing, maybe out of steel. I obviously don't know much about blacksmithing. But Deborah, you have a very specific course, and we talk about this in the office. Some of you guys may have seen us talk about it in our Teachable Facebook group. On copper deficiency in goats. Now, that is another very specific niche. And what I would love to know is, what were some of the biggest challenges that you had for finding people to take that course? Because it's one thing to have people that are searching for tips on raising goats, but to have a course so specific and get that many students in your course, what was the biggest obstacle or challenges that you faced with that?
It actually wasn't that hard to get people into that course, because that is, weirdly enough, that's a question that people ask on goat groups on Facebook all the time. And so, it was one of the things where, whenever I've posted, and so whenever I see a lot of questions happening again and again, I think, oh, that'll make a good blog post. And when I wrote a blog post about copper deficiency in goats, it just totally blew up. like every time I've written about copper and goats, it has so many views, like 4 or 5 times as many views as my typical blog posts. And so I don't remember who, because I read a lot of different people, but somebody said, find out what your audience's pain point is. Because I gotta say, I was thinking about doing something super boring like goat housing or something like that to get started. But then I was talking to my husband about it, and as I was talking, all of a sudden I just clicked, like, oh my gosh, it's copper. That's what people are constantly asking about, because it really is a big problem with people who have goats. And if your goat is copper deficient, they're going to have problems with infertility. They're not going to get pregnant. They're not going to stay pregnant. And they could even die from it. So it's really a big deal. And as soon as I put it out there, it went viral. Like, I could not believe how fast it was, just like hundreds, throughout the first day. And, I was posting on the Facebook group for Teachable, like, I can't believe it. In 2 hours, I've got over 200 people in this course. And it just kept growing to where it hit 1,000, and now it's almost hit 2,000.
That's incredible. Now, when you say that when you released it and went viral, was it that you addressed maybe certain symptoms or problems that people had with their goats, and then you explain what a likely solution was to it? And I ask you that because even though we're talking very specific on like goats, I think there's parallels to every industry. So how was it that you introduced this concept? Because if I had goats and they had problems, I wouldn't know if they were deficient in copper or if they were just sick. So how did you introduce that concept?
One of the things I did was I would post I started out posting, have you ever had problems with infertility or something like that? One of the symptoms basically of copper deficiency. And then people would look at the course, and then people just started sharing it. And so I actually got all of those people in the course without ever spending a dime on advertising, because it just started going through the goat groups. And even now, like, all of a sudden one day I'll see like my numbers just shoot up. Like, I got 200 people who added the course recently in over a couple of days, and I have no idea where they came from, like what specific goat group that they came from. But I'm sure that's what happened, is that somebody else said, wow, this is a great course, and was just sharing it again.
That's so great. And just so you guys know, I love that you guys are typing into the chat. I've saved room for Q&A. So if you have very specific questions, I know you guys are already asking really great questions. We're going to come back to them and ask them as well. Now I'd like to move on to Tila and Spencer. And this is kind of going off of what Deborah said of building things that your audience is asking for. You guys have incredible courses on very different topics around hand lettering, and watercolor painting and design. But how do you know which topics to create your courses on? And because I'm assuming the ones that you're doing, your audience are interested in, they're signing up for them.
Yeah, so with our weekly tutorials, it gave us a great opportunity to try out different topics. If I had an idea for a course that I might want to make, I would start, kind of doing light topics that were related to the course topic, putting up the videos, seeing how they resonated with our following, see how many comments they got, put stuff on Instagram, see if anyone commented there, create blog posts around the idea. And the more that these topics resonated with people, it was more of a sure thing. I would actually even send out email blasts asking people if this was something they were interested in and something that they would pay for too, which was really important to me to get feedback about, because we release so much free content that it was really important to understand that this is something that people would actually be willing to pay for as well. So I would just get an idea for a course, something that I felt that I could offer even more value for within a course, and kind of test the waters right there and see how people would respond.
Now, that's actually a really interesting point. One, and I hope you guys are taking notes as you're watching this. So you did weekly free training. So you were consistent, you delivered value. Now, when you're asking people if they wanted to purchase it or if they'd be something they'd be interested in purchasing, how did you ask them that? Did you say, I have a course, it's going to be this amount of money, this is what we're going to cover? Or was it just a general, are you interested in this topic?
So whenever I create a new digital product, because we sell textures and fonts and other graphic design assets that help people enhance their designs without them having to go and create it themselves, whenever I would create something new, I would promote it and also talk about how I made it. So once I started really getting into font making, I had a lot of questions about the software I was using, how I went about it from start to finish. And the more that it resonated with people and people would ask me all these questions, I thought, you know, maybe this is something I should really make a course on, because there really wasn't any competition out there for this kind of thing. So I sent out email blasts, I asked, I got great feedback, I created blog posts, I created free content. So when people downloaded these cheat sheets or materials lists for font making, I would get, I would tag them for, we use ConvertKit, so they would get tagged, and then I would see this list growing with all these people who were interested in this topic, so then I could email them more and get more feedback about it. So that's when I really knew that this was something worth spending time on, worth investing in, because it took, gosh, it took like 3 or 4 months just to create the course, but it was well worth it. It's definitely been our most successful course to date.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. And kind of also segueing into what you just talked about, you guys are all using different mediums to give free value to your audience. So Alec, you're on YouTube. Deborah, you're blogging, you have books. Tila, you're also on YouTube, you've got your blog. What I would love to know is what platform, so outside of just an email list, has been the most impactful for growing your audience? And like, I'm assuming you're using that platform to get them onto your email list. But which one have you seen to be the most effective for actually getting people that are interested in your courses? Alec, let's start with you.
For me, absolutely YouTube. I mean, it's the big driving force for everything in my business. And I'm very, I think the way to describe it is I'm very coy in my marketing now. So I when it comes to marketing my online course, it's just a link in the description of my videos. And I, in fact, mention it very, very rarely, which is a position that I'm thankful to be in at this kind of, you know, level of YouTube following. It's easy to do, and I'm easy to focus just on providing value as much as possible with, you know, with ad spots, you know, here and there with sponsorships. But it means that, you know, I'm not in everybody's face all the time selling, because playing the long game, I'm trying to spend, you know, as much time as possible investing in the as investing as Gary Vaynerchuk would give it, the jab, given as much jab as possible, so that then in the future the right hook can land a lot better when it comes to then selling things. So for me, it's all YouTube right now. That's been the most powerful for me. It works well with how it is that I like to interact with people, and it works well with the content that I enjoy creating, and it works well with what it is that I do, because it's a very visual, very, very visual thing anyway. Blacksmithing, you know, you're seeing things being created. So that's been the absolute biggest and best social media platform for me.
And can we actually go back though, because this is great and I love it, because there's people, like there's someone I think on today and before that has like over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. So that's a really great point for people that are maybe more advanced or have a bigger following already. But can you go back to when you first started, or let's say like that under 6,000 subscriber mark? When you say like you were growing your audience, and for those of you that aren't familiar with the jab, right hook, the jab is giving value for free. So building trust with your audience, helping them get wins. And then the hook is when you ask for them to purchase something. When you were doing the jabs and you're doing your free videos, did you have a fancy setup? Was it just you and your camera? Because your videos right now look very professional, obviously. But as you were building your audience, like, was it always that fancy? Did you always invest that much?
I mean, absolutely not. So thankfully, without realizing what I was doing, is I was from the age of 13, when I first would make the occasional YouTube video, I was creating a YouTube channel that was going to work well with eventually marketing online courses, because every once in a while I would post a video that, you know, though I was not that much more advanced from what it was that I was teaching, I would be posting a tutorial and people would become engaged in it. So over the course of, you know, quite a few years, I was able to, you know, have slowly built that. And it started out with, you know, terrible iPhone videos, and very slowly ended up being on a DSLR and not a whole lot better. and then ended up, being able to be a DSLR with maybe some sort of a decent audio recording capability. Like, it starts off bad, it starts off crappy, and eventually, it ended up being better. How much stake do I put in the quality of the equipment now? A great deal. Starting out, I don't think it's essential. I think that absolutely you can wing it, because the content of what it is that you're saying and what it is that you're teaching it can generally surpass a bad audio quality.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I think one of the best sayings I've ever heard was, if you're not embarrassed of when you first started, you started too late. Now I want to move on to Deborah, because I don't think you are doing YouTube, or it's not like your focus. What platform has been the best to grow your audience for your very niche course?
Probably it's tough to say that one is best, but my blog is definitely the home base that I am constantly sending people back to. So it's a combination of the blog and Facebook and Pinterest, because I write the blog posts and then I post on Facebook and Pinterest, and that is what sends people to the blog, and where they can then sign up for my email list. And so it's really a pretty traditional marketing system, not nearly as sophisticated as YouTube and stuff. And I do some Facebook Lives, which I think helps a lot. I've noticed a really big increase, and I really feel like I am at the beginning of this whole thing. I mean, I hear Alex's numbers and am jealous and thinking I'm never going to get there, because I still have pretty low numbers. My blog gets only about 25,000 views per month.
That's still pretty good.
My email list is up to, well, I just reduced my email list. So my email list is at around 4,500. And I also had a group I still have a group on Ning, N-I-N-G, which is like kind of like Facebook on steroids. Like, there's just more of everything, like bigger discussion boards and stuff. And I've had that for 8 years, and I have a couple thousand people on there. And that's actually was the very first audience that I sold everything to, were those people.
That's great. And I'm actually so glad that you said that, you're like, oh, I feel like I have a small audience, because I know you saying how big your email list is and how much traffic you're getting. There's people that are saying the exact same thing that you said of where you are now. And I really want to dive into, or really want to bring up the fact that you have 4,500 people on your list. It's not the size. So guys, everyone that's watching this, it's not the size of your email list that matters. It's the engagement, and it's of the right people. It's so much better to have 1,400, 500 people that are genuine fans, if you will, of your work, that are looking at your posts, that are engaging, versus having like 100,000 people that are, maybe opening your emails. They're not really caring what you're doing. So that's great. And so you're saying, so Pinterest is a great way to bring traffic to your blog. When you're talking about live streaming though, what do you talk about? Because I think a lot of people will, start their live stream and then they go blank. And they're like, there's no one on right now. What do I say? How do I keep people interested?
It's definitely, I've discovered, because I've played around with a lot of stuff on Facebook Live. And if I can get an animal in the picture, or if I'm in the kitchen, those are the things that I start to see the numbers going up a lot. If it's just me in front of a camera, that gets really depressing fast, because people are like, oh, what's she talking about? And if you don't catch them within a couple seconds, they're in, they're out. And so when you do things live, like if I'm in the kitchen making cheese, or even just some of the stuff that you think is so boring is stuff that people get really into. Like, I've set up my camera in the milking parlor and just talked about, like, okay, this is my milking routine. The goats come in here. This is what I do. This is why I do it. And another day and then people start asking, like, well, what do you do after you're done milking? So I'm like, okay, that's my video tomorrow. So the next day, then I set the camera up in the kitchen and I showed everybody, this is what I do with the milk when I bring it in from the barn. And so don't think that it's really the stuff that you do every day that you think is so boring is really a lot of times the stuff that people want to know and they want to see. I was really surprised when I saw the number of live viewers growing like it did as I was doing some of these things.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I really think it comes back to what all of you guys are doing and have been doing, which is consistency. We've seen people that have started from zero. I know there's a lot of you in the chat right now. They're like feeling discouraged. You're like, oh, well, I don't have an audience. Everyone started without an audience, but it's about being consistent. Even if you have one person on like your live stream or you have one person watching your YouTube video, that's one person that you could be helping. And that's going to grow into 2, into 3, to 300. Now, Tila and Spencer, I'd love to know for you guys, because you have your courses, but then they also tie into the products and services that you sell as well.
Mhm.
What platform has been the most impactful?
I think I'll jump in this real quick. I think our platforms are split. We have the blog that has a significant amount of traffic, and then we have YouTube, and they're both good for a couple different reasons. The blog is great because everything's written, where there's a lot of our audience doesn't always have access to video during the day, like their internet's not that like good a quality. So the blog is great for written stuff. They can obviously opt into PDFs, freebies, everything that kind of everybody does through marketing. And then obviously all the comments that people, have the dialogue with us. And Tila's great because she's always answering, always making sure that everyone gets their comment answered if they have questions, which is pretty time consuming. And we kind of follow the same format when it comes to YouTube. YouTube, everybody gets exposed to Tila's teaching style or voice. We can promote the freebies and even paid content that, like you were mentioning, the textures and the graphics that we sell. A lot of times we'll do tutorials that involve them, and then we can have some portion of that paid content be free so they can test it out on their own computer. And then if they like using it, enjoy using it, find it useful, then they can go and buy the full version.
That's great. Yeah, it's so interesting to see what all of you guys are doing, because I think it's easy to get trapped into thinking there's only one way and you have to do it like that. Now, I want to dive into your launch process because, I think a lot of us have seen people launch courses that help other people make courses or make money. But you guys have audiences that are not in the online marketing space, that might not understand what an email marketing funnel is. So I want to start with you, Alec. And I think you kind of already said this when you say you add the link in your description, but when you were smaller and you had less subscribers, what did you do to get people to join your course?
Are you talking about the launch of the course itself?
Yes.
Okay. So at the time I was making very few YouTube videos. And so what I would do is I would have a video that is very specific to the course. So it is essentially part of the course. It goes into a little bit of a detail and alludes to what happens next. And I would publish that at the same time as I published the course. That would be one of the ways that I did it. I would also have a tutorial sometimes with some of the other courses, make a tutorial, get the emails, and then slowly and progressively sell them on a course launch. But it would start with the video, which would be the hook, and which would be the impetus for people to then go and join the email list or potentially go straight to the course itself. And I can't particularly remember, sadly, which one worked better, whether getting people to email lists or whether getting people to go straight to the course worked better. But certainly it was always the giving of the free information on the YouTube video that was the start for that.
That's such a great point. And I actually just want to pause here for a second. You brought up a really great idea or something that people can do, which is having a teaser. So you were obviously showing the end result of what people could do with Steal. But so everyone in the chat, I want you to have a think right now and think about what is it around the topic of your course that you could share as a teaser. So if you are in cookie decorating, can you show like the finished product of like what the cookies will look like? So type into the chat. I want to see you guys start coming up with ideas, because that's a really good point. It's something that we can all do on YouTube. You could do a blog post where you have a teaser. You could do live streaming. And Deborah, I want to move on to you as well. because you have people that probably aren't used to getting 8 emails for 8 days and, you know, like bonuses and early day specials. What does your launch process look like?
I used oh gosh, I can't think of his name now. The product launch formula.
Jeff Walker.
Yes, Jeff Walker. Thank you. I'm like looking through my books over here going, which one is it? Yeah, I used Jeff Walker's product launch formula. And it all started because I had this goat group on Ning for, you know, at that time it was 7 years, and I spent so much time answering people's questions and thought, I should be able to make money off of this instead of this just costing me, you know, $225 a year for nothing. And so I used his seed launch, and so I sent out the first email and said, you know, what do you want? And I had set up a Survey Monkey thing, and so I sent that out to 2,000 people, and I got, I think, 150 responses, which I was really encouraged by. That, you know, 150 people were saying, this is what I want. Because I asked, like, what topics do you want to learn about? How do you want to learn about it? Do you want PowerPoints? Do you want live action videos? You know, a whole list of things. I think I called it, what do you want to learn and how do you want to learn it? And then I wrote back to them and said, wow, so many of you asked about parasites in goats. Here are some blog posts I've written about that, so you can read about that now. I'm working on the course. And then I think, I don't know if you asked Jeff Walker, this may have been the longest seed launch in history, because I actually tried to create that course 3 different times and scrapped it before I found Teachable. I wasted so much time on other platforms. And then, so I kept sending them emails. I'm like, they're going to forget about this. So I kept sending them emails saying, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Here's some more information about this. So I kept sending them free information for 7 months. And then when I did finally launch it, I had, I had 2% conversion rate, like right off the bat. And it was really fast. Most of those people bought in the first day, which, you know, maybe it was because I made them wait so long.
Well, you know, that's a very interesting point. And we've seen this because we obviously have access to all of the data for our top performing course instructors. And a lot of people, when they start, it's not like when you hear the big success stories or the overnight success stories, it's a lot of the time people have been growing their audience and their list for months, some people years before they've actually asked to sell a product. Now, you don't need to wait that long, but you know, even if you have been writing a blog and maybe you only have 200 people that are reading it, but they've been following you every single week, every time you're posting content, I would not underestimate the power that can have. And then finally, Tila, what about for you guys? What does your launch process look like?
So we've done a couple of different things. Our most successful course, our font making course, we open and close that one. The other ones are open all the time. So the first time we launched it, we used a video mini course. And then the second launch that happened just in August, we did a bunch of different emails. So for the first 3 or 4 emails, it was purely educational, purely totally free, just informing them about the process, teaching them something new, something they could try, getting their hand lettering to a place that they were happy. And then the course picked them up from that point and moved them forward to digitizing and then programming the font all the way into selling the font. So there's a lot of encouragement. I would talk about my own personal story and how I went from just being a hobbyist with hand lettering to being able to sell my font, making up my first year's salary when I first started becoming a graphic designer just off of font sales. So letting them know that this is something that's totally possible. You don't have to be an established name in the industry. Just a lot of encouragement, education, information before leading them into here are the benefits from learning the skill set and what you can do with it and how powerful it can be for you in the future. So that one was our most successful launch so far.
That's great. And I think it's a great point of sharing your story. The thing to remember, guys, when you're launching your course is that there's people on the other side of it. And it's easy to get caught up in the numbers and how big is our list. But I think, so Tila, when you shared your personal story, I'm sure it helped people really resonate with you and see that, you know, she's not just another blogger. She has a story that I really connect with, and I'd love to learn more. I'd love to work with her. Now, there's already, like, the chat is crazy. We were almost over 1,000 people like a couple minutes ago. So lots of people watching this right now. I want to go into the questions because I know you guys have some very interesting questions for our guests here. And while you guys are typing those in, is really great to see what you guys were thinking for your teaser. There's someone that was a hairdresser and was wondering what they could do as a teaser, and I think showing styles like hairstyles, and then your course could be the how-to. Let's go up here. If you guys see any questions, by all means, jump in.
I saw a great question earlier
Yes.
by Julio. When using YouTube as a method to generate free but valuable material, when is the jab too much? Meaning, is there a point where you might give too much information and not be able to hook, or is it, or is more better when giving free material? And I think that's a really great question. That's something that I've battled with, because I mean, when I made my when I made my online courses, I essentially kind of put most of the things that I was really knowledgeable about and very certain that I knew well out on the online courses. And so creating the educational teasers on YouTube became very difficult, because I'm still learning the rest of it, you know. So the way that I've dealt with that issue is the jab doesn't necessarily have to be an educational thing. That's what I do. I mean, I basically document the process of learning all sorts of different techniques within the niche of blacksmithing and knife making, and yet still by showing competency in learning skills that are relevant but are not my skills initially. That then points back to the foundation, which is, for me at least, the online course that I have, and that curriculum, which is the foundation of why it's easier, for example, for me to pick up these different skills. So I can document the process of learning other skills and then reference back to how the foundation, the online course, helps this whole process come together better. So you can still document and not worry about giving away all your information because you don't know enough. That's my situation.
I love that. You know, it's such a great point. And there's a really interesting question about, where was it here? Andrea from California was asking, is there a specific process you recommend to determine a niche? Now, I know for both of you, I'm assuming that your courses were developed because of your hobbies and what you were already working in. But did you have a process for how to decide what your course topic was going to be on before you even had an audience or before you even launched it?
I think lettering has always been a huge passion of mine, but I'm a professional graphic designer, and I was figuring out how to merge graphic design with lettering, because you can really integrate hand lettering into your graphic design work or create custom stationery that you can list and sell on Etsy and really make a nice side income. So I saw this opportunity to mix my two passions together, and I just started putting content out there just to see how it would resonate with people. And I learned a lot in that process, that there were a lot of people that wanted to learn more about this process. And because I had a background in graphic design, I could really push my hand lettering a lot further than what I saw was out there. So I saw a space for me. So I would just kind of look at where your passions lie and see how you can spin things in a way that's a little more special than what you see is out there, what you can bring to the table that maybe other people can't. There's some kind of quote that's like, what's your unfair advantage? And because I had a passion for hand lettering that I was developing, but I had a background in graphic design, I saw that opportunity for us.
Oh, that is so good. Oh, a little bit of an echo here. Can you guys hear me still?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. You know, that's such a good point. I would love right now, because I don't want you guys just to listen to this and be like, oh yeah, these are great ideas. And I know some of you guys are saying that the chat is distracting. I totally understand. But I want everyone right now to type into the chat, what is your unfair advantage? So just like Tila was saying, she worked around hand lettering, but she had a background in graphics design. You know, what is it that you could bring to the table that, I mean, it doesn't even have to necessarily be directly related, but it's something that would make people resonate with you. A really great question from Julie, and this is for both of you. What price points are your courses at?
So we have a few different price points. We want to make sure that we have education that's accessible to whatever your budget may be. If you want to start out on a smaller price point, we have $27 courses. We have a $37 course. We have a $67 course, and our font course, which is our most popular, but it's definitely it's over a 6-hour course.
It's huge.
It's very in depth, and you learn from very beginning to end, improving your hand lettering, digitizing it, using font software, and then selling your fonts too. So the course is meant to pay for itself, and that one is $397. So we've kind of got a huge range in price, just so you can kind of jump in wherever you're comfortable, and then you can build up to however far you want to go with what we offer.
I love that. And what about you, Alec?
My courses start from $29 to $299. And that depends on the difficulty of the course and kind of basically how far along the process is. And generally, there's more content as it goes along. With that, I've made the most money off the most expensive course, even though obviously it's made significantly less sales. And then close behind that is the least expensive course, which is the introduction. It is the how to start. And so it's quite interesting that, you know, the lowest end course and the highest end course are both competing very close to equally, but the dearest one, the most expensive one at $299 for, I don't know, I can't think how many hours it is, maybe kind of 4, 5, 6 hours of content. That is the one that has generated the most revenue.
I'm really glad that you brought this up. Guys, type into the chat if you guys were on our workshop earlier on today at 2 p.m. Eastern, because that is exactly what we've been saying, is you want to use premium pricing. Now, you guys have done it very strategic in a very smart way, where you have started with a lower priced item, but it's not that the value is cheap. It's just probably a smaller, or it's like an easier course, and you've worked your way up. But, you know, it's great to see that with the premium price, you're getting the same results as a cheaper one. Now,
I would like to be very clear. When I launched that $299 course, I was absolutely terrified, and it took all my will to hit publish and to send the emails to launch it. It was the most terrifying thing ever. It was horrifically terrifying, and everybody is going to be terrified when you launch, you know, whatever it might be, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours of content for $300. But people work through the course a lot better. I've had more people talk to me about having completed that course, despite the fact that it's a tiny, you know, it's a 1/10 of the number of people that have completed the entry-level courses. When they pay the money, they stick through, they work their way through, they invest themselves in the course better, which is good. And of course, you know, the bottom line for the business, which is very good, is that it still brings in more revenue than the cheaper courses.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I know how many, I'm not going to say the name of the website, but courses that are like $19 that I have yet to start because it was an impulse buy. I was like, oh, I can do that later. It's not urgent. And you guys are amazing in the chat. I mentioned for those of you that were on the webinar earlier on today, and you guys are all typing it in, which is great. Now, Michelle brought a very interesting point where she said $297 doesn't feel like a premium price. But am I wrong to believe that for your niche, $297 probably is kind of expensive for people that are looking to buy a course in that topic? So for Tila and Alec, if you want to answer that, I'm assuming for your audience that would be considered a premium price, right?
For ours, the hand letters, it's a very side hobby type of skill. So it made sense to start it at an introductory price we started at $297 this year, and we're increasing the price to $397 because we've expanded the course over time to offer more advanced customizations to fonts that you can charge a higher price for. So a lot of people are just hobbyists, but they want to find a way to make more money, passive income on their fonts rather than putting their lettering on like addressing envelopes for weddings. You know, that you do this service once, you're paid once, and then it's gone. Whereas a font can continue to sell and bring in that passive income every single month. So it's a lot about persuading people the value of the course, that it is there, that the course is meant to pay for itself. And even though it may seem like a lower price, you still have to purchase font software. You still have to have Adobe Illustrator. There's a learning curve, so it's going to take a little bit of time. So there's other investments that we had to consider in there as well. And it worked really well for us. I mean, we sold more than we expected to. So we think we hit a good sweet spot.
We had to do a lot of research on just our competition, even though there's not like a specific tutorial out there teaching people how to make fonts necessarily. There's a lot of people that teach hand lettering. So it was important for us to research what is like the most expensive hand lettering course out there, even if it's not having anything to do with making fonts on a computer. So we had to make sure that we were priced competitively to what's already out there, because we can just like throw a, you know, guess at what the course we think should be, and then nobody buys it because it's not even close to what other people are selling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's so true. Now you guys have launched more than one course. You've seen what works and what doesn't. But you guys are in a very interesting position because you're launching courses in very specific niches. So before we go through our final questions from the chat, I'd love if you all could share, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned from launching a course within a niche? And Deborah, let's start with you.
Oh, that's a good question. Probably just that you can't underestimate how much your audience is interested in it. The interesting thing to me is, and the fact that there's just nobody doing this particular niche. And I think maybe it has to do with the fact that there's not a lot of people who have goats or even farm animals who understand technology enough to be able to do a course. So I thought there was going to be competition, and I looked around a lot and I didn't find any. So one of the books I remember I read talked about, you want to get into a niche where it's got blue water, because there's nobody else trying to do it, as opposed to the red water where everybody's getting killed because there's so much competition. And I'm just really shocked by the fact that there is no competition. I feel like I need to be, like working 24 hours a day to get everything out there before other people figure this out. Because like right now, all I've ever been able to find is a course on chickens and then 2 courses on farm marketing. And both of those courses on farm marketing were done by people who worked in marketing and got a farm. They are, that's obvious how they did it. So a lot of what I've done, actually, I've paid a lot of attention to the guy that's got the chicken course, to see what looks like, what's worked for him and what hasn't.
This is so refreshing hearing someone say the guy with the chicken course, because all we hear now is like online courses and marketing. No, but that's a really great point. And, I really would encourage everyone here, and again, I hope you're taking notes, but to do that thing as well is look what else is in your industry. And what you've done, Deborah, which I think is brilliant, it's just like you were saying, finding a niche even within a niche. So finding that blue water that no one is at, where you can still be in the same like topic, so like homesteading, but you got very specific, so people that were looking for that topic knew that your course was for them. And how about you guys, Tila and Spencer?
Well, for me, so I've created a lot of courses. I started on Skillshare, actually, and that's how I got a lot of practice with creating my own courses. And then I moved over to Teachable, and I saw there's a way larger opportunity to have a more loyal and engaged audience that I could teach to long-term, and we could benefit financially from as well. With courses that I had created in the past, I would just have an idea for a course and be like, I think people will like this, I'm just gonna do this, and then spend a month or 2 working on it. With this course, with the font course, it was the first time that I sent an email to our entire email list asking them. I created multiple blog posts, Instagram, I posted it on YouTube. I sought feedback like nothing else I had done before. So my biggest takeaway was just any other courses that I do in the future, I'm going to validate to the extent that I validated the font course, because it's definitely paid off in the end. For all, you're going to spend so much time working on this course that you're really proud of. You want to make sure that people are going to be on the other end of it, ready to buy. So I would have, if I could go back in time, I would have spent more time validating past course ideas, because I was just trying to output as many courses as possible when I should have been focusing on these really super valuable courses that were more in depth, that people could benefit from so much more than like a quick hour course on something.
That's a really great point. How about you, Spencer?
So yeah, I'd almost say that I'll add on to that, that we have had a lot of course launches, and I think what I learned is that you got to be patient, because you're going to learn so much from doing one course launch that you're going to think back and go back in time and say, well, I should have made the price this, or I should have offered more tiered pricing, or there'll be so many things you're going to think about doing. So it's important to, no matter the outcome of your first launch, is to just do it again. And maybe it's with a completely different topic, or maybe it's a part two to that first topic. And then you just start tweaking, changing the dials a little bit, not so much that it's, you can't keep track of the analytics, but
yeah, hang in there and don't get discouraged, because even if your first course isn't a hit, because gosh, I made 12 courses before I created the font course.
Yeah.
You just got to hang in there, like you said, consistency, because every course you make, you're going to get so much better at teaching. You're going to think of things that you need to teach in the moment, so you don't get asked a million questions later on about that topic. You just get much better at it. So hang in there. Even if you don't get the results that you were going for, just stick with it, because you're always going to benefit somehow from it.
Yeah, part of the reason I think the font class did so well is because it was a good topic, right? Everyone kind of gets a little lucky with the topic that they pick. You can't like put all your eggs in that basket. But then the other was that it was a culmination of all our past experiences from our other launches that kind of created this like perfect launch for this one product. So it kind of all came together for that one. So that was really nice.
Yeah,
the practice paid off basically.
No, that's really good advice. We see it time and time again, people that have launches with 5 people, but they're delighted. Yeah. They're like, I have 5 people. This is incredible. Yeah. I would have wanted to make more money, but still, these are 5 people in the entire world that decided to join my course, and they're trusting me to learn something. Mm-hmm. Something interesting that I found also helps for you guys listening is if you talk to your audience. I don't know if any of you guys have done surveys. I think, Tila, you probably did it when you were talking to your audience. But seeing the language that people use when they're describing their problems. Because we've seen a few launches of courses where they haven't actually changed the course itself, because it's the exact same outcome, but they changed how they were communicating the value and the problems that they were addressing. And sometimes it's as little as tweaking what the problem is and what you tell your audience your course is about that lets them see, okay, this is a course for me. This is what I need. And last but not least, Alec, what's one of the biggest lessons that you've learned from launching a course in a niche?
I don't know if it's specifically from launching a course, but I think that the best lesson that I learned from almost anything that I do where I'm trying to make money online is provide value in the marketing and in the product itself. It's all about the value. It's all about the value. At the end of the day, everything's about the value. Every single social media post, whether you're trying to sell something or not, it's about the value. And every single product that I release and put my name to, that's my focus. Is I want to provide the value. I want people to be throwing their money at me because the product is so valuable and that helpful.
Yeah,
that's about all I've got to say.
This is brilliant, guys. Thank you so much for sharing this. Like, I was so excited to speak to all of you because it's so refreshing to talk to people that are launching courses on Teachable, but aren't in the same space and the same topics that we see time and time again. And I'd love for everyone, we're gonna have one more question so you guys can ask Alec, Deborah, Tila, and Spencer, if you have a very specific question you want to ask, we'll go through one more round. But as people are typing that in, can you all type in your website URLs? Because people have been asking like crazy and the chat's going, but I'm also trying to listen to you guys. But just as you guys are typing that into the chat, Deborah Neiman is from thriftyhomesteader.com. We've got Alex Steele with an E. Check him out on YouTube. Spencer and Tila are from every-tuesday.com. And now everyone's typing in their URL. Okay. Well, hopefully you guys can sift through it. We will have it here. I'll type it in. So once we finish, I'll also type it in so you guys can see it kind of highlighted. Yes, Terry's like, chat is going too fast. Yeah, we've got like almost 1,000 people still watching after like 54 minutes. So this is awesome. So we're going to go through one more question that you guys have for our guests here. And if you guys have seen any specific questions or you have any very specific takeaways that you want to share, by all means, I'm going to scroll through
I saw one question, I think from William back quite a ways, that asked what the rationale was behind us opening and closing the cart for our font course. So the reason why this is the only course that we open and close is because, number one, once it's closed, I am personally available to help people if they get stuck at all. I'm personally available there. I want everybody to succeed. We have a private Facebook group. I'm in it every single day, helping guide people along, making sure if there's any pain points whatsoever, I'm there to help solve any problems that anyone runs. So they're not alone, and there's an entire community there now to support people. So as soon as it closes, we've got a whole new group of people that are kind of following along together. Even though you get lifetime access, obviously a lot of people like to start it right away. So you're part of a community that's in it and creating your font together. And then the other thing is with a $397 course, you can invent as many excuses in the world to choose not to do it at that moment in time, because whatever's going on in your life, by opening and closing it creates kind of scarcity, where there's the fear of missing out, there's worrying that, later on you're gonna want to make a font and you don't have access to it. So it encourages people to make a decision. You don't get to hang out on the fence for as long as you want. You have to choose whether or not you're going to be a part of it or not. So that really encourages enrollments, especially on the first and the last day. That way it's not just hanging out there whenever you want to join. There's that community behind it, and then you're able to get in when other people aren't able to get in.
Yeah, no, scarcity is, and I'm pretty sure we talked about that in the workshop as well. And guys, if you missed the 2 p.m. workshop, please, tomorrow, there will be an email with the replay link. I encourage you to watch it, because everything that our guests are talking about, and actually we have you guys are featured in that webinar. We show your schools. Everything that we're talking about today is what we cover in that workshop. One last question here for Alec, which is, and I guess this could apply also to you, Deborah, how did you start the process to documenting what you will teach? And I think that is kind of how did you outline it? How did you structure your course? But feel free to take that as you'd like.
For me, it was really easy because I was patterning it after my book. So since I had already written a book, I totally just used the book as an outline. And I created the PowerPoint slides from the book. And then if there was anything that I felt people needed to see, then I created a video with a live goat in it, showing them this is how you trim hooves, or this is how you give medication to a goat, or whatever. So for me, it was really easy.
That's great. And I hope for our authors listening, even though Deborah talks about goats, this can apply to every niche. And how about you, Alec?
With me, there wasn't a whole lot of thought other than following the curriculum that I was kind of teaching in person, and thankfully it's a relatively, you got to learn one thing to be able to do the rest. The techniques that are part of blacksmithing is to a certain extent modular. You can learn one and apply it to the next project and build on it and build on it. A question that I just real fast, I just feel I've got to answer, is from Linda from Florida, who asks, how do you get started if you have no email list or followers? All the presenters seem to have this already.
Good question.
And it's the same. I mean, it could. It's just so important to say it. You've just got to start. You've got to start. It's going to take time to do it, but the longer you wait to start, the longer it takes to have the rewards for all your hard work. You start using all the social media platforms to your absolute best. And of course, again, I would say the number one rule with getting people to care about what it is that you do on social media is provide value. Provide value, provide value, provide value. Make people thrilled to see your posts in their feeds, because Lord knows there's plenty enough posts that we don't want to see in our feeds, and so if you're the valuable one, it's always going to be the recipe for success. So the sooner you start providing the value, and the sooner you'll have the following, and the sooner you'll be able to monetize that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. And actually, one last question for all of you, which actually goes off of that, which is, how long have you guys been teaching online? Because we're seeing where you guys are at with your following, and I know each and every one of you probably have somewhere that you want to go and you still want to be larger, but how long have you been doing this? How long has it taken you to get to where you are? Let's start with you, Tila and Spencer.
I put up my very first YouTube video. Don't look it up.
It's good.
January of 2014. So I'm going on 4 years of doing a video every single week.
Wow. Have you ever missed a week?
When I first started, I would do every other week because I was really nervous and still trying to figure out what I was doing. I taught myself video editing, so I came a long way just figuring all the tech out for myself. But starting, I would say summer of 2014, it became an every week kind of thing. So I've been doing it every single week since, I would probably say like June of 2014. But my very first video was January of 2014.
Okay, I love that because that is just proof right there, which is consistency and 4 years. So, it doesn't happen overnight.
Yep.
And how about you, Deborah?
I launched my Teachable School in March. And one of the things I want to say is that when it comes to like starting is like, just do it. Like Alec just said, because I've been online, like I've had a blog since 2006 and I've been on Facebook since 2007, but I just like was throwing out, I was giving all this information for free and I had no clue how to monetize it. And it wasn't until a year ago that I got ConvertKit and started building my email list. And so in 1 year, I actually just culled that list because I was going to pop into another price range. So, that my ConvertKit list was like at 3,000. And then I've got my Ning group over here on MailChimp. I'm trying to keep it at under 2,000. So that's free. So I'm like really budget basement list building here, until I make more money. But I'm really excited about the fact that like I grew that, because that ConvertKit email list totally came from people visiting my blog, people signing up at conferences. Oh, and then a real quick tip I got from somebody somewhere was that to join my because I have a Facebook group also. And when people go to join my Facebook group now, one of the questions I ask is, if you would like to be on the Thrifty Homesteader email list, give me your email address. And a lot of people are doing that. So I'm getting emails that way. Like there's all sorts of little ways, I get 10 addresses here, 10 addresses there. And then somebody I noticed in the question section asked about how to talk about this on groups without seeming spammy. When people ask questions, I will give like a 2 or 3 sentence answer and then say, for more information, check out this post on my blog. And I give a link to the blog. And then at the end of the blog post is where the links are to the course.
That's awesome. But just a quick question though, when did you start your blog?
The current blog that I have started in 2011.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, that's like,
and I just want to cry when I think about the fact that I was not doing anything to collect email addresses until a year ago.
Yeah, I can imagine. But no, that's great that you've been building that audience. And finally, I know we're going a little bit over time, but Alec, when did you start, or how long have you been doing this?
I started producing online content 6 or 7 years ago, and 6 years ago or so. 2011, my first terrible YouTube videos, and so it took a long time. It was then kind of 2 years ago from now that I started making online courses. That's with the slow progression from there of very slowly, inadvertently developing a following. Had I thought about it, it could have happened a lot faster. But
that's great.
It takes time.
And guys, I hope that you guys are listening to this. Almost every single one of you guys have said, I wish I had started back then doing this. You guys are watching this now. You got so much value. You're going to be learning so much during the summit. Don't wait, 6 months, a year to start taking action. You don't have to have this big production of a course. You don't have to have hundreds of thousands of people on your list. It's just taking that first step, because you learn things from that. You see what works for your audience and what doesn't. So don't wait until you have too many people, where those mistakes can have even more of an effect. Guys, Alex Steele, Deborah Neiman, Tila, and Spencer. Again, please, I encourage everyone watching this to stay connected with these people. If you have other questions, I'm sure they're on Twitter, on Facebook, or on YouTube. Definitely stay in touch with them. But thank you guys for watching this. I hope you've enjoyed this. And I will see you all tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern with our workshop with Brian Harris. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye.